with Anthony and Miss Tracy Ellis Ross, showing how that family comes from. I won't necessarily say poverty, but comes from, the hood, and how they've transitioned and they're trying to not have their children go through that same experience. However, you still have to make sure that your children have the knowledge that they are navigating this world through while black. Right. So it's like, yes, you have all of the things that your friends have that's right in this home. But once you step out of this home, remember that you are black, and it's harder to teach your children that when they're not growing up in those types of environments. But I think as far as the way that we're portrayed in media, I feel like they just sprinkle in a little bullshit. I do. I feel like they tell certain truths about black communities, right, that makes it feel relatable to us enough for us to want to continue to watch it. And then they sprinkle in propaganda and certain aspects of criminality and things like that, just enough to soil the character of the person that you like. It's like you like them, but we can't just be heroes. We have to be anti-heroes. They don't just put us in a position. Yeah, we can't just be the hero. We can't just be good. We can't just be the protagonist. We have to be an anti-hero. John Q is a dope ass movie with Denzel trying to fight for his son. You're rooting for him that entire movie. You want him to get it together, and you can feel yourself as a parent in that character saying, I would want to do the same for my kid. But at the end of the time, he was a criminal, bro. Based on the law. And I feel like the same thing with Shonda Rhimes. She put us in power, and that's amazing. But she put us in power, and then with the power that we had, we used it to protect people that were not us, if that makes sense. We used it to protect the other people that were being criminals, which also made us the criminal. But it also focused on the fact that we were the ones that were getting away with it. I feel like there's a lot of propaganda when it comes to placing us in films, placing us in media, to where they can't just let us be the good guy. They have to throw some bullshit in there just to remind us, right? Just to remind everybody in America that, oh, they're still this, right? They're still that. And that's the part that I don't necessarily enjoy in some of the most popular black shows now, such as Power, and those. They're good shows. Don't get me wrong. It's excellent writing. Excellent writing. They're entertaining. No bullshit.
I used to have scandal watch parties, so
yeah,
there
I
ain't
was
nothing
like
you can tell me about
entertaining.
Carrie.
I just feel like in some of these shows, it's a lot of propaganda, but I am also really excited that a lot more people of color are starting to step behind the camera, and we're starting to screenwrite ourselves. We're starting to direct ourselves. We're starting to be broadcasters ourselves. So we're able to write the story from our point of view rather than white people writing black stories and then casting black individuals to portray an image that only they have of black people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I want to go back and reference Tracy Ellis Ross. Do you notice the pivot, the shift from Girlfriends, where they had these superficial issues like that you can tell were created for TV, comedy TV, and then she pivoted into Blackish, which were real life issues that we deal with.
That's the difference between a show that's written for black people and one that's written for black people and by black people. What you think our experience is versus what our experience actually is. And I feel like we as a community can tell, but it's also still a part of the programming. Because when we get so excited about some of those criminality shows and whatnot, we're still also putting that in our heads that that's who we are and that's who we can be. So I don't know. I feel like I'm excited that we're making progress, and more black people, more black bodies are starting to be on our screens and on our radio stations and on our influencer, news feeds and things of that nature. However, some of the ones who are coming up in their popularity, I hope that they continue to walk in the pride of blackness instead of what? Why are you looking at me?
No. I was just gonna question that though. Would we be as interested? So if there wasn't some sort of shaded area, right?
I don't mind the shaded area. I mind that every show has the same shaded area. It's drugs.
Oh, well, the show I tried to get you into, Queen Sugar. they didn't really have shaded areas. They was just trying to combat the man the whole entire time.
I have not finished Queen Sugar. It did get interesting in the first few episodes that I watched, but I didn't go back to
Yeah,
it, so
y'all
I
gotta
can't
watch
speak to
Queen
that.
Sugar.
I can't speak to that. However, it is a very interesting show, and if I were still, watching TV the way that I was back at that time, then I probably would go back to it, and I still recommend going back to it because it was interesting. But that is another show that I would watch. I would continue to watch it. It was a good show. Lovecraft Country. Good show. Just good black ass TV.
And they canceled it.
Yeah, and they canceled it. Blackish, just good black TV. That's all it was. And I would like to see more shows like that, or shows that have deeper plots than drugs. I liked How to Get Away with Murder.
I loved it.
Yeah, I was like, it's something that has something different than trying to portray us as thieves and drugs. Not that I want to be portrayed as murderers, but I'm just saying it was different. And it drew me in because we were playing something different. Can you think of any common misconceptions about Black people that you wish people knew the truth about?
This is going to go into my medical background, so that Black people have a higher pain tolerance. It's just not true. And so being a daughter of someone who has been dealing with almost the same pain for 2 decades, and the doctors cannot figure out what's wrong, it can be really depressing on your psyche, and it can be harmful to you because they don't listen to what you're saying. They just think, oh, you're back in here complaining about the same old thing. And it's just a misnomer that we need to inherently change. Black women giving childbirth, like, we have the highest death rates because doctors don't believe us. There's been so many cases of friends and family members that I've known that if a black person within the system didn't advocate for them, they could have died because the lead doctor, who was not a person of color, didn't believe what they were saying, didn't believe the pain that they were in, and didn't decide to dig deeper into what was going on with them. Even my cousin, she's been to several different specialists and and doctors in her pain journey, and it's just like, are you listening to me though?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I hesitate because I feel like I used to walk that fine line. I didn't want to appear as though I were being racially biased when I specifically asked for a Black doctor, but I was trying to avoid all of those things. I had high risk pregnancies. I was on bed rest at one point in time, and just after my first experience with having my daughter, and not being given enough anesthesia. So I felt the entire C-section. I felt the cut. I felt the pulling. I felt the separating of my skin. I felt when they were pushing on my body to push her into a specific position so that they could pull her out. I cried the entire time. As my husband stood there, he didn't know what to do either. I was 20. He was 21, 22. Neither of us knew what to do. This was our first baby. And he's sitting there not knowing what to do. So I felt unprotected, but also I was scared. And I'm in pain, excruciating pain in the hospital. And this was a military hospital at that. So it's everybody makes it seem like military hospitals are way better. They were not. They were severely understaffed. I could have died. My child could have died. Like, it was an absolutely horrific experience. And I did it 3 more times. I had 3 more children.
On purpose.
But it was an absolute horrific experience with that hospital. And what I did from there is, even though we still lived in that state, all of my other children were born in Texas. I would fly to Texas the last couple of weeks of my labor. And I would, just to make sure that I could go to BAMC Hospital, where I knew I was going to be treated correctly when I had my child. And I knew that the chances of me getting a person of color as my doctor was higher. Every time that I delivered at BAMC, well, 2 times out of 3, the doctor was Hispanic and she was a woman. And the other time that I delivered, it was 2 doctors. One was a Black woman and the other was a Black man there. And I needed an emergency C-section. But that Black woman kept it real with me. I will give it that. I will give her that. She scared me because she told me that if I didn't move right then, I was going to lose my son. That was with Legend. And the other doctor was like, well, I mean, we can try to wait. I was scared because I had already lost one child and had two miscarriages at that time. And so I was really scared of losing Legend. And the doctor was like, okay, well, we can wait for your family to get here. I wanted someone to be there with me. And I had family in Houston, family that was like 30 minutes away, 40 minutes away, all of this, but he was in distress. And the male doctor, he was a, I don't want to say white man because he wasn't American, but he was a white man. He was from overseas.
Caucasator.
Yeah. He was from overseas, and he was like, well, we'll try to wait. He was trying to be understanding of the fact that I was clearly scared. And the black woman was trying to, after hearing that I had already lost a child, she was more concerned about my mental health and the health of me and my child in the event that they waited too long and I was going to end up giving birth to a stillborn. So he was like, okay, we'll give you, maybe 15 more minutes, see if somebody can get here. And that black lady straight up walked past him, pushed past him, and looked me in my face and said, if we do not take you downstairs right now, I'm afraid you are going to give birth to a stillborn. And I needed that. It was harsh. It was abrupt, but I needed that in that moment. And I trusted her. I don't know why, but I immediately went into trusting her because the look on her face when we made eye contact, she was like, no, I'm not playing. Like, I know that he's trying to be patient with you, but baby, you might lose this kid, right? I forgot what we were talking about. Oh, yes. What's happening to black women as far as pain? I feel like doctors are doing to black women what police are doing to unarmed black men. And it's a conversation that we definitely need to have, not just within our community, but with every community, so that everybody understands exactly what's happening to us. Because I feel like it's being swept under the rug when it comes to that.
Yeah, both of my best friends almost died in childbirth. Shaky's on here telling her story. She had to have an emergency C-section, and that was a thing in itself. And then they gave her an infection and almost killed her after that.
And Kaylin said her mom went through the same thing in the comment section. Yeah, so we definitely, we need more black OBGYNs. We need more black...
Thank you, Stacey. It is a statistical fact, yes, within the medical community.
More doulas, because we need more advocates for ourselves.
Start sending your kids to medical school. We need more of us in the field. Yes. And shout out to Jazz. I'm not sure if she's listening. She just won an award for being the lead head nurse at one of the biggest hospitals in Houston, Texas. Grew up. Shout out.
Yay, Jazz. Well, we're about to transition. So this is not technically, this is not necessarily a game. So for those of you who played Justified, Unjustified, or Escape Artist with us, this would just be a few black stereotypes or stereotypes about the black community. And I want to know your personal opinion on them. And I will share them. Do you think that they're true? And then are they true to you? The first one is black people don't tip.
Well, I'm going to start off. For me, no, that is not true. For when we go out, we tip, and it's normally over the 20%, especially if the service is good. If the service is good, we're going to tip over 20%. And anybody in our family or friends, they're going to tip over 20% normally, unless we just had an absolutely terrible experience. And yet and still, we'll still tip. It just might be 15.
Right, yeah. 15 is the standard.
Yeah. But even if I was out with someone who I might not know very well, or if I do know them well and they just decided not to tip, I'm going to call them out. Hey, yo, man, you got to be better than that. Well, you got to at least leave 15%. Like, you're not leaving $2 on a $100 bill. Like, we not rolling like that. Or I'll even passively aggressively just throw down an extra few dollars myself because I don't want to be seen that way.
Yeah, for sure. My aunt does this thing, and I am manifesting that I'll be in the position financially to do it and keep that going. But I think it's really cool where when she gets exemplary service from someone or she just feels moved, she'll tip them $100 or more, no matter what the bill was. So if the bill was $50, if the bill was $200 or whatever, she'll just tip them $100. And I have not... Like I said, I think I may have been in the position to do that once or twice before, and I felt really good about it then, but I'm hoping to be able to do it more in the future just to see how people's how people
yeah, that's
light
my
up.
thing. If I got it, I'm going to give it out.
So I don't agree with that stereotype either. Black people don't tip. How do you feel about black people don't vote?
Ooh, it's so complicated. So I will say that now there is more of an emphasis on black people voting. Maybe not as much now that we're not voting for somebody that's black. But I will say the emphasis on voting is more important to black people now, since we have learned that our vote literally sways the Democratic Party either to win or not to win. You'll see, when the Democrats don't win, it's because we didn't vote, and when the Democrats do win, it's because we did vote. So, I when it comes to voting for Hillary, I think that was the issue why she didn't win, is because there was a lot of black people who decided that they didn't want her in office, or they didn't really care for her that much. So that is why she didn't win. But I think we do have the power, and I think there's a lot of us that recognize that, especially with the work that Stacey Abrams is doing. We all need a Stacey Abrams in every state. Shout out to her. But I don't think it's true as a general population of black people. I think there are some subsets that think their vote doesn't matter, or it doesn't count, or the government's controlling us anyway. You want me to pick between bad and worse, I'm not picking nobody. But I think that as a whole, it's not true.
I've had a pretty interesting experience with that, with being in the forefront of the Black Lives Matter movement, not the organization, but the movement in Texas in 2020. One of our main objectives was to register voters of color in particular. And I noticed that when I was going to neighborhoods that I lived in at that time, more of the suburban neighborhoods or the upper middle class neighborhoods, they were like, oh, we were going to mail in, our votes this year, or we were going to have to apply for whatever online and then mail them in, but you're here at our door. Cool. How do we do it? And they'd sign up. They'd get their voter's card in the mail. There was no problem. But when we went into more of the impoverished neighborhoods, a little bit more into those, I don't like calling our hoods ghettos, moving more into those neighborhoods.
Urban.
Yeah, more into our urban neighborhoods. I noticed that I got a lot more pushback, or I found myself needing to convince or explain why voting was important. There were a lot more, my vote doesn't matter. There was a lot more, they're going to do what they want to do anyways. There were a lot more, sister, why are you out here trying to get us to vote? You should know that they don't care about us kind of situation. Kind of conversations, I guess, while I was at their doors. And it took some convincing. I'm glad that we were still able to get thousands of people registered, but I found myself having to convince my people that their voices did matter, having to convince my people that we need you for the democracy, sis. Like, I need you to show up. We will even send buses to come and get you. We need you here. And I'm noticing that a lot more people who are in those neighborhoods, unfortunately, were either taught not to care about those things, or they've lost hope. They've lost hope in voting. So I am hoping that those of us who understand the importance of voting are able to reach as many of us as possible, so that we can continue to progress. How do you feel about Black people don't read like that?
In my case, personally, it's not true. I got like a mini library, but I used to read, like read. I used to read a lot outside of even college. I literally was driving back from Dallas one time reading a book because I couldn't put it down. It was so good. Eric Jerome Dickey. I read probably not empowering stuff, but it was just real interesting to me. So I personally, myself, I read. I know a lot of people in my circles, we read as well. Now, there's probably a portion of the Black population that doesn't read like that, but not in my circles or my areas. So, yeah, I would say that that's not true entirely.
I would agree. I would agree. I love to read as far as my research goes. When I'm researching a subject or something that I'm going to speak on, I like to look up as many different links and things of that nature as possible with that. As far as a book goes, that book has to be interesting as hell from the beginning. I don't know if that ties into my autism or what, but if it's not interesting in the first two chapters, I regret that I bought it. Like, I regret that I bought the book because I'm not going to pick it back up. I'm not. If I am going to, if I do pick it up and it is an amazing book in the first couple chapters or whatever, I can finish a big book in a matter of hours or days. My mom is the same way. She has her Kindle. She'll buy hardbacks, whatever it is, and she's an avid reader as well. So maybe that's why I enjoyed reading. My children enjoy reading, and we soar at it. We are great readers, writers, spellers, all of that. So I definitely don't agree. I do not agree that Black people don't read. What about Black people don't swim?
For me personally, I'm a water baby, so swimming was going to be something I had to learn because I love being in any type of water. The lake, the pool, the beach, the ocean, all of it. I love it. But I will say, in the family that I grew up in, y'all, Jamaicans don't swim. They do not swim. So I would say that's a mixture, yes and no, because a lot of Black people that I know, they swim. And if I'm out with someone who's Black and they don't swim, I kind of look at them funny. Do you not? I kind of look at them funny.
I don't necessarily look at them funny, but I'm a water baby. When we first started dating, I think I had you at Corpus Christi with me like every weekend, and my sons are water babies. They love being in the water. They think they can swim. They cannot. So we have to keep buying them, vests and things of that nature. But they will jump in like they just know that they can float. I think that the wording of that stereotype is incorrect. I think Black people swim. Black women just don't like to get our hair wet. We'll get in the water.
Yeah, because when we was at Nee's pool, we had just washed our hair. We was like,
hold on.
Not today.
So I'm like, today. I feel like it's just worded incorrectly. Like, we'll swim, we'll get in the water, we'll, play. Black people don't splash much because we don't get
keep all that splashing
all
over
that
there.
Extra shit over there. So I think that's the difference. I think we just swim differently. We like to relax, chill, calm, feel the water, kind of be one with the water, hang out. We cooling in the water. All that cannonball shit, y'all can keep that on the deep end.
Nah, but for real though, there's a gang of Jamaicans that don't swim. No, let me tell you, there's this one time it was a family event. We had it at the pool. We barbecuing, having a good time, and somebody accidentally or purposely accidentally bumped my aunt in the water, and the pool was like 3-foot sticks. So nobody thought it was emergent at the time. Look, my aunt had a conniption, like the Kevin Hart.
Nobody saw fucking dolphin number 3 missing.
So we all screaming at her, Auntie Marlene, just stand up, just stand up. And her husband at the time was like, she finna kill herself. So he had to take off his cell phone and jump in the water and grab her and like literally just say, hey, stand up.
I have 2 swim stories. One, my daddy, my biological daddy, threw me in the water thinking that, sink or swim. Well, I sank.
Oh, yeah. That's traumatizing. And you still like the water?
Definitely sank. And he waited. It felt, I swear, I felt like I died. Like, I thought I was in the water for like 5 minutes. He said he let me stay in the water for like 10 seconds, which to me felt like 3 hours of being in the water.
When you can't breathe, yeah.
Exactly. And he pulled me out, and I just remember looking him in his face, and I was like, and he pulled me out, and he was like, nigga, you didn't even try. Like,
you just said, I'ma sit here.
He said, I expected you to kick or flail or so. I don't know how they didn't know I was autistic. But anyway, he said, I expected you to at least try to kick your arms and legs. He goes, I dropped you in the water and you just bloop, bloop, bloop.
Like a Mario character.
He said, you just went down What the hell is wrong with you? And I just looked at, I was like 6. Why would you do that? I don't know why you would, but I did. I just sunk to the bottom.
He didn't tell you to kick your legs or nothing?
He didn't tell me shit. He just threw me in the water. Because my other siblings at the time knew how to swim already. So he threw me in the water thinking I was going, and go with them. I didn't. I was just like, I just froze and just sank to the bottom of the pool. It was horrible. Another time, my mom took me to the Boys and Girls Club and in the summers, and I took swimming lessons there. So I was super excited. And I don't know who ever said swimming was like riding a bike. Like once you learn, you never forget, because I forgot. But I went to the Boys and Girls Club, and Mr. T taught me how to swim on my back, how to float, how to turn over. I was doing all this shit. I was so excited to tell my mom that I could do it when I got home. So that summer, I had my cousins, my aunts, like everybody. We went to a resort that we used to go to in the summer as a church. Like our church came, all my friends are there, all my cousins are there. I'm like, and I know how to swim. Like I'm about to show everybody.
Show y'all, I know how to swim.
Everybody, right? My little cousin was like, I think by this time I was like 10. And my little cousin was like 6, because I'm about 4 years older than her. And her name is Tristan. And she's running on the side of one of the pools. And I was up with our other family. And just as I turn, I see Tristan accidentally fall off the side of the pool. She slips. So my big dramatic tale, I'm standing with my family and I just start screaming. I'm like, Tristan! And I just take off running to the
Slow-mo
pool. And
action.
yes, everybody, like, of course, perks up like deers or meerkats. And they're all looking to see where Tristan is. She falls in the water. And I don't remember what happened after that, because apparently while I was running to her, I slipped and I bust my head on the side of the pool. So now they had 2 emergencies. So somebody else got Tristan out of the pool, and then I woke up a couple minutes later. I busted my ass. So it is surprising that I still like water. I absolutely love going to the pools and whatnot, but both times that I was introduced to, ooh, yay, pool life, it didn't go too well when I was younger. Y'all, I see y'all laughing at me in the comments. Don't do that. I don't know how they didn't know I was autistic, but I had a learning curve.
Like, I'm just imagining you going, Tristan!
I did. And then my mom made fun of me. I don't remember who she was telling, but she was telling somebody like the next day or whatever with what happened, because I couldn't get back in the water because my mom was scared I had a concussion.
Yeah, you could have bloop for real.
And she was telling somebody else's story. She was like, my niece fell in the water yesterday, and then she saw my niece fall in, so she goes, Tristan, and goes running after her. I was like, first of all, you could have left that part out. Like, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that. Anywho, how do you feel about the stereotype that all Black people can sing, dance, or are talented musically?
That's not true at all.
I think that's a stereotype that even some Black people believe, and I need y'all to stop believing it.
Yeah, because I can't sing. I mean, I can dance, but I tell everybody all the time, the Lord knew what he was doing when he didn't give me no singing abilities, because I would be singing everything. I would be singing right now. Yes, Lord, for the rest of our day.
Why would that be the song you would choose for this station? Not you broke into gospel.
I would be singing everything. All my answers would be singing. Look, no, but we all can't
I do respond
sing
in song often.
Yeah, I do, but it just don't sound like when you do it or when Monk does it. It sounds pretty bad.
Oh my goodness, y'all! If y'all heard my brother, he just randomly breaks into song,
like great song.
Mm-hmm. And we have beautiful voices, so he'll walk around and he'll just randomly hit a run while he's walking, ooh, and we'll, what the hell, like what are you singing with his earphones in? But I do. I think that is a stereotype that Black people enjoy. That's one of the positive ones. But it's also false. Like, it's just...
Because I've seen some uncoordinated Black people in my life.
It's not, now, if it were a stereotype saying that we're all talented in some way or another musically, like maybe you have beat, like you have rhythm, or you can sing, or you can dance, or, something like that. But to say that all Black people can do any of those things is... false. It is 100% false.
It's just like the same one where all Black people are good at sports.
Mm-hmm.
We are not.
Mm-mm.
Look, I had a girl that was in high school. She was very intelligent. She didn't have any street smarts or common sense, but she was intelligent. She's probably somebody's doctor right now. I'm not even lying. That's how smart she was. But she was terrible athletically. Terrible. So it
I'm
is
so
not
glad
true.
my coaches worked with me, dog, because I was a cheerleader, but I was uncoordinated as fuck, okay? And it's because I've always been long and lanky, and I kept hitting growth spurts out of nowhere. So my equilibrium and stuff was off. Even when I went to grab something, my arm's longer this week than it was last week, so now I'm knocking shit over. It was very stressful is the word I would use coming up, especially after turning like 11. So I'm glad that I had some coaches, because I did have some that were just like, this long bitch is useless, right? Like, we got her on this team, but good Lord, she useless.
And you was just bigger than
Yep,
everybody else.
just big and long and fast. I was fast as all get out, but I didn't like track because I had to do it outside in Texas. So it wasn't my strongest. I say, it's hot out here. I don't want to do this.
How did your parents not know?
My mom paid all kinds of money to put me on a track team for like 3 years in a row. And each year I told her I didn't want to do that. It's hot. I like to go into practice and hanging out with my friends. And then when the actual track meets would come, because track meets aren't just like 2 hours.
They like 13.
Like a basketball. Yeah, it's all day, y'all. We are outside all day. I need to sleep for like 3 days after the first track meet, and track meets last days. Like, you got to come back the next day. I was like, why did you put me in this sport, Mom? Like, I don't want to do this. It is hot out here. But I was hella uncoordinated. By the time I made it to basketball, sweetheart, I'm very thankful for good coaches who believed in the potential they saw in me. Because, baby, for the first year of basketball, I was the mop. I just kept hitting the floor. And that's why I was so good at free throws. I was skinny as all get out. So if you breathed on me, I was probably going to fall. And I stayed at the free throw line. So that free throw line extended became my best friend, because I would not miss from there, from shooting so many free throws. So yeah, that is false. All black people are not good at sports. Fun fact, I became good at that one. But
I would
did not
love
start
to
off.
see some beautiful bean footage of
Yeah, I was
you
like, I did
flopping
not start
around
off
your
that
first
way.
year.
Baby, they tripped me. I fell everywhere. I couldn't catch. It was bad. It was bad. It was so bad. And my mama would just have to sit up there in the front row.
And I'm going
That
to
one
stick
right
beside
there,
her.
that's mine. Yeah.
I'm going to stick beside
The
her.
one that just fell, the one that's still falling. Yeah, that's that's mine.
Oh, Lord. I was
Yep.
the injury prone one.
Oh no. Well, that
Yeah.
too. 'Cause
That's how I
my
became an
grandson-
athletic trainer. I was always in the training room. Always
we was
in the
just
training room.
struggling. How do you feel about the stereotype that black fathers are not present?
That's not true. Because you had one in your household.
Well, yeah, but technically, I borrowed him.
Yeah, but he your daddy.
Yeah, that my daddy.
He your daddy. I hope my stepfather is listening right now. Banks, I love you.
Right.
So that's not true anymore. Now, if we want to get into the history of, back in the crack epidemic where they were taking our black fathers out of the family, now we can get into that. But right now, I think there's so many of us that were broken from the previous generations of that, that they don't want to be what they received when they were growing up. They want
That's
to be
an
better.
interesting topic, Kaylin. She said, I think it's kind of true since our families were systematically ripped apart. I think at some point in time that were true, which is why, once again, this is one of the ones that I feel is worded incorrectly. I don't feel like black fathers don't want to be present or black fathers leave. I feel like black fathers aren't necessarily, a lot of them are not taught that family dynamic. Because they didn't grow up with it, and their mother or whoever raised them didn't grow up with it, and usually their parent didn't grow up with it. This goes back several generations to where we didn't have that family dynamic to pass on, to teach, right? So I think we're starting to get back into a space where it's a conversation, and we're taking that time to show people. But also, I think that in certain aspects, it's just completely false.
Yeah.
Because most of the black men that I have met are amazing fathers.
I guess that's why I didn't think that was true, is because a lot of the people that I know are fathers, even if they're not in a relationship with the mother,
Yeah, no, I
they're
agree
still
with
very
that.
active. Because I wouldn't surround myself with a person.
Ain't shit ass daddy.
Yeah, I wouldn't
no.
surround myself with a person like that. So, like, even if it was somebody in my family, if I had a cousin who didn't take care of their child and it was their fault why they weren't in their child's life, I get in their ass real quick, because I know what it feels like to not have a father around. But I guess that's part of the stereotype. So.
Yeah, it comes in. So I don't agree with that. That black fathers like choose not to be present. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there are some that choose not to be present. We didn't have the greatest relationships with our biological fathers. Neither of us. They made the decisions that they made, lived the lives that they lived. We know who they are. We can identify them in a lineup. You feel me? But my stepfather really stepped up, and he's who I call my daddy now. If you guys ever see me post about my dad or tag my dad on Facebook or anything like that, that is my daddy, but that is my father that I borrowed from the rest of my siblings. That is my mother's second husband.
But he a cool daddy to have. I call him daddy sometimes too.
Yes, and he's adopted her. I had to check him though and get in his ass a couple times
real
though,
mad.
because I am your daughter. Don't do that. He'll call him like, what's my other daughter doing? Call her phone. Don't do that. You are calling to talk to me, sir. I'm the favorite. I don't know where you got any of that mixed up. But I'm a Leo. And I feel like I have to be the favorite. Show. Yeah, I got to be the favorite of everybody. You can love other people. That's fine. But I am the favorite. And everyone needs to know it. What is your take on the angry black person stereotype?
So I feel like it goes back to slavery. Right.
Black people? But I mean, if anybody had a reason to be mad,
it's the proposition that we're angry, right? Because during slavery, we were very submissive because we didn't want to receive consequences for speaking out or even knowing how to read. Proving that you knowing how to read could get you killed. So we were very, very, very submissive. Yes, master, whatever you need. You know what I'm saying? And as time has passed, there's a lot of black people that say we not standing for that shit no more. And we have created boundaries within our lives. And somehow us creating boundaries and saying, no, I won't let you treat me like that has painted us as angry, which is completely incorrect. It's not angry. It's just we setting boundaries with you. I'm not going to let you treat me like that. And sticking up for ourselves. Now, I will say that there are some black people that are just angry for various reasons that have happened to them throughout their lives. But as far as the overall narrative that we're angry, no, we just not going to let you do that shit no more.
I would agree with that. I think that the angry black person stigma comes from people having this feeling, even if it's in their subconscious, that black people aren't allowed to set boundaries. Like, you should be able to violate or treat me however it is. And as long as you feel that my, that my basic human rights aren't violated, then you can do whatever. But no, I'm allowed to set a boundary on how you will speak to me. No, I am allowed to set a boundary on how close you are to my body. No, I am allowed to set a boundary on how you touch my body, or if you are allowed to touch my body. I'm allowed to set these standards and these boundaries for myself, and you are able to hold yourself accountable to them. I think people automatically feel, I won't necessarily say attacked, but they feel I'll say people have a sense of entitlement when it comes to our time, our voices, our spaces.
That was the word I was thinking of, is space.
Yeah. They feel like they should be able to still have a part of that because everything that they've had historically has been in our spaces, has been ours, and they were able to still just go ahead and say, oh, this is my space now. I can take this space now. This is our land now. So I feel like even in emotional things, such as setting emotional boundaries, people feel like I should be able to be allowed here, right? The same thing when it comes to the N-word. People are like, well, why, how come you get to say it? It's in every rap song. It's in every this. How come you get to say it? But we also use the term bitch endearingly. But if you, a stranger, someone outside of my community or outside of my friendship walked up to me and said, hey, bitch, a swing's coming with it. You good?
You got to, yeah.
You know, like, are you okay? You shouldn't join in that just because you see me calling my group of friends, hey, bitch, this or hey, bitch, that. That's not for you. Same thing for, like, say I'm married to a husband and he calls his homeboys or whatever bro or whatever it is he's got going on. If I'm just meeting them, I'm not going into that saying, hey, bro, or what's up, my nigga. That's not how I operate, because those are your friends. I don't join in that. That's your community, and those are your circle of friends that you have that relationship and you identify with those words with. And that's what the N word is. It belongs to a specific community of people, and that community of people can determine whether or not we have the type of relationship that allows you to speak to me that way. And I feel like people outside of our community feel entitled to it because in their minds, whether subconscious or not, they feel entitled. They've always had access to blackness, even though they were not black. And now that black people are starting to put up a couple of gates and say, hey, the accessibility to this, the first requirement is blackness.
And you ain't got it.
Right. And you're lacking the materials required for you to have access to that. And I think people are becoming upset with it. But I would agree with that. I would think that they tack on and say that we're angry or we're aggressive when we stand up for ourselves in a way that everybody else should be able and allowed to stand up for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, like the story I was telling you in the car. My last job when I worked at the college as an athletic trainer.
444.
Oh, yeah. Angel number, y'all. I had a, I won't call him an assistant, but it was somebody who he was disabled, and him coming to the school every day was him being able to get out of the house and have something to do versus just sitting at home all the time. So he just came in and washed towels for me and helped me clean up, after the athletes were done, mostly every day. And I also had students who were getting a grade for helping me as well. And they washed the towels one day. My man came in and had a whole conniption that they washed the towels before he could wash the towels. And he came in screaming and yelling at me. And I'm like, hold on, man. I feed you. I take you home. You're not going to talk to me like that. So I met him where he was at. And some of the white coaches, they heard me meeting him where he was at because he wasn't finna talk to me like that. And they were like, oh, what's she bitching about now? She always angry about something. And another coach heard them saying that. And I got portrayed as the angry black woman in that scenario because I was meeting someone where they was at. You're not going to talk to me crazy. I was setting a boundary. And that is inherently how we get labeled that way.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Where were we? Oh, well, that could be your experience. I was going to say, have you ever experienced racism or discrimination?
Oh no, I got a better story.
Specifically because of your race.
So the incident that happened was racial. Okay, so the last job I worked at, I was an athletic trainer. So we had the GroupMe app. That's the group chat app where you can put a bunch of people on at the same time to deliver information back and forth. And one day a picture popped up of a black athlete with, one of the workout ropes around his neck with a white boy that was holding the rope. Bro, and they put it in the group chat for the whole team. This is coaches, team, like the students. Everybody is in this app. And I was astonished that one of the coaches hit the button where, you can laugh at it. And nobody said anything that this was wrong. So what I did is I anonymously sent the whole story to a news anchor, a black news anchor, back in Houston. And he ran the story. It became this whole investigation. And then when they got rid of 2 of the 3 sports at the school and decided to only keep one athletic trainer, which was not the black girl, that was the result. That was the retaliation because I decided to call them out on their racial egregiousness.
That's great. Well, in the I have another story that just speaks to the insensitivity like that. Shortly after the George Floyd incident, as some of you guys may know, I got involved in the Black Lives Matter movement. I started my nonprofit, Reliable Revolutionaries, as well as my nonprofit. My other nonprofit, the Village Project, and we held 88 days of protest, of peaceful protest, which is how I ended up getting into it with the sheriff. I was all over the news. It ended up becoming a whole situation. But at the beginning of starting those protests with George Floyd, we had a very passionate, an intimate meeting. It was a lot of us, but we were talking and we're crying and we're all, it became like this venting session, but also this very empowering session. And these two individuals, we're taping, we're videoing, so that we can get it to the news after. These two individuals decided that it would be a good idea for them to reenact what happened. And while we're protesting, people are talking and we're crying and we're meditating.
Wait, what happened to George Floyd?
Yes, he puts his neck. So we're on the ground. He puts his knee on the neck of another black man, and it's caught on camera and on film. And they were like, it was just like to show like what it would have been like. Yeah, the dramatization. And everybody was like, we didn't need to see it twice.
Yeah.
We watched the video. Like instantly it was. I probably should not have gone into the type of rage that I went into when I saw it. I didn't approach it that way because at that time, my I won't say slogan, but the way that I chose to lead was lead with love. And I kept telling people that lead with love, lead with love. So even though I was in a rage, I took some time, calmed down, so that when I spoke to these two individuals, I could see where they were coming from, ask them some questions, and then correct, rather than just going and flying off at the handle. Because again, I didn't want to be the angry black woman, even though in that moment I was both angry, black, and woman, right? I was all of those things. So, I feel like I could kind of relate to that. They got shredded before I even had to bring the conversation to them by other people who did not take the time to calmly and rationally go to them and talk to them. They had already been berated by the time I got to them. So I was able to meet them where they were and give them grace, and they realized the error. But I was like, what would make you think that was a good idea? Okay. We're all sitting here crying and emotional, and you think, well, let me try it. Like, what? What made you think that? Yeah. So, have you ever felt like you had to behave a certain way to fit into a certain black stereotype?
I would say with that one, it's not that I had to fit into a black stereotype, but I felt comfortable enough to let my hair down and be amongst my peers in a certain way that I might not normally have done. So back in college, and Shaky, if you're still listening, you can hit the comments. Back in college, outside of the cafeteria, we had what was called the black hole. Now, I went I went to a PWI, so there's literally maybe 50 black people, and most of us played sports or we were either from the area. But we had what was called the black hole because that's where all the black people congregated at the school. Mm-hmm. And we just literally sat there and clown people who walked by, usually white people. I'm sorry, Stacey. We would clown how they dressed, how they were walking, how they were talking. Even our homeboy, he brought out yellow flags. He would bring out yellow flags from the football field and say flag on the play if it was something like real egregious. So I will say I didn't change who I was. I just felt comfortable enough in that space to meet people where they were at and just have a good laughable time.
I guess I can relate to both. I can relate, to both ways. I can relate to feeling like I needed to change certain things about myself in order to fit into the black community that I was surrounding myself with at the time. I grew up with a lot of athletes, but I've always been a creative. I've always been artistic. So being interested in art and poetry and things of that nature weren't necessarily cool where I was from. Everybody wanted to be an athlete. or student council. Like it was one or the other. You were either like really big into school or you were really big into athleticism. And I was really big into art. So I felt like I needed to pretend like I was into those other things in order to be a part of the Black social clubs that were at the school that I was in. And also, like I said, I'm autistic. It makes a lot more sense now looking back on why I was like, why can't I navigate this? Like people liked me, which was cool. People were drawn to me. I had a magnetism about myself, but I always felt like I don't fit here. Like I don't belong. And then on the other side of that, there's code switching, where I felt like I had to prove that I am not a part of the stereotype in corporate America, right? So going into different workspaces where I know how to conduct myself like a human being, whether Black, white, Mexican, whatever. I know how to conduct myself like an adult in a workspace, but I feel like there were added rules because I'm Black. You know, like if a white woman walks in and she's interviewing, she's automatically assumed that she's professional. And if she gets a little loud, she just got a little crazy that day. Like, ha ha, oh, Susie's so funny. But if I get a little loud, it's Joe is just loud, right? It's automatically associated with the fact that that's just how Black people talk. Instead of in this moment, I just got a little passionate or I got a little loud. So I found myself fighting stereotypes like that. In the corporate world and feeling like I had to behave a certain way to not fit into certain Black stereotypes. And then we're going to wrap up here soon. Can you think of any Black comics who particularly, or Black influencers, anything, who are particularly good at challenging stereotypes in their work?
I would say Shonda Rhimes. That's how we got Shondaland. She put people like Kerry Washington in those positions that we had never really seen before. Scandal, for example, we had never seen a character like her, Olivia Pope. Like,
I agree, Stacey. Stacey said Trevor Noah. I 100% agree with him.
Good one.
I thought Kerry Washington as well. She's played the stereotypical Black roles as well as she has played the sassy roles, as well as she's played like the fun and just kind of awkward roles. Lupita, I think, does a great job at whatever role she plays. She's just that role. As well as Will Smith. Whatever role Will Smith plays, he's just that role. I don't feel like the stigmas have to go with it. But we are wrapping up here, guys. Again, thank you for tuning into our segment on Black stereotypes in media.
Yes.
It's important that we continue to have these conversations and challenge harmful representations of Black people in media. So let's work together and create a world where Black stories are told authentically and with nuance. Catch us next week right here every Thursday at 4 p.m. on Laugh Therapy. Thank you guys so much. See y'all next week. Hot 702.5.